Hi, everybody. It is February 8th. It is in the morning. I know the General Assembly is actually having a hearing starting this morning, and it's probably going to go really long. And I did what every citizen should do, which is submit written testimony. Or actually, I'm going to after this. But the reason that I'm doing it after this is because I am hyperlinking everything in PDF. And so, if you are watching from the General Assembly, you'll be able to actually watch me read my testimony because there's a lot here, and I think some of the effect is kind of missed if you read it. So here it is. It's day 694 of the 15 days to flatten the curve. I'm including a link to this spoken version. That is to the extent that YouTube's going to leave it up. You know how YouTube is; they do what they do. If you disagree with the official narrative, it's medical misinformation. So I'm also hyperlinking this, with the exception of Exhibit A. It's the latest and greatest. It's what you would call science. It's a study about the harms of all the mitigation measures and all the things that we've just deemed, so good should be mandatory. But this committee won't do that thing called science, and it's for the reasons to be proven and demonstrated. So I'm not going to change any minds. The only constructive purpose here is to confront my abusers and, quite honestly, to make a record such that the sort of evils that I'm going to talk about never happen again. And this is, of course, after my abusers get their day in court. They all do. They all will. Unlike the Democratic Party, I don't believe in taking to the streets and wrecking statues and, doing such things to kind of, I believe in due process. I'm a due process guy. So this is what's going to happen. It's not going to matter today. It's going to matter in the future. Minds are being made up. Federal money is to be obtained. Ex post facto justifications are to be had today. That's why the emergency is going to be continued. So that's where it is. So this is for 5 years from now. This is when the civil rights litigation comes to an end and can start winding down. And hopefully we have a government that is ready, willing, and able to make sure this never, ever happens again, looking back on this. So you on the committee and your colleagues in the General Assembly that have allowed the abuse to happen and allowed it to have no end in sight, you're my abusers. That's you. Whether you did it overtly or whether you allowed it to happen, you're it. There are less than 10 people I can count on my hand that aren't it. So chances are, if you're in the General Assembly and you're watching this, I'm talking to you, my abuser. So most of those people, you on this committee and your colleagues, quite frankly, in the General Assembly that have allowed the abuse to end and have no limit, I have every reason to believe you hate me and you hate my children. Of course, I say that because the edicts that you've allowed to run amok made sure that I didn't see him for almost 2 years. And that's just not the worst that's happened. I mean, and of course, you also hate the children that you allowed to be abused because they were separated from their friends, their family, their social support networks, things that kind of, would allow abuse to stop. So this General Assembly has allowed the governor to take almost a year of my earnings. The whole Reunite CT program is a joke that only left me comparatively out in the cold to say all the other landlords that are subject to municipal foreclosures and utility shutoffs, actually leaving them out in the cold. So the arrogant attempt to exact such a heavy economic price just in this one aspect of reality alone, it mocks us. What it does is it tells us we're chattel. We are property for the government to do whatever they want to us. It basically says we're to be lorded about. And oh, by the way, rents are going up. You, my abusers, did that. That's just baked into the economic cake. So here's where we kind of go, what happened? The only reason you say the science is settled is because you would adhere to 694 days of ignoring all public health costs, all human suffering inflicted by all of it, and the data screams the truth. None of this worked. None of it worked. Read Exhibit A. Unlike you, like most everyone else, we have to live in the real world. We suffer consequences where our decisions matter. Um, and by the way, this is hyperlinked, for the General Assembly if you want. And if you're watching this is I'm sure publicly available. So you've ignored the data on vitamin D and how inexpensive and widely available knowledge could have saved far more people than any of the arbitrary measures that you imposed and what doctors would tell you of it. You purposefully have ignored the existence of the Math Plus treatment protocol that existed since April of 2020. It's been there. You ignored it. You ignored the fact that the protocol is a verifiable process that works and has an in-depth explanation to it, as given by the physicians using it. You ignored that even as of August 2020, even when NIH was saying that it was unethical to suppress it. Yet the General Assembly did, by adopting the governor's royal decrees, accepted that no viable treatment existed. So, of course, by extension, you ignored how Japan got the job done without extreme life-destroying measures of the dangerously evil and destructive ilk that you've taken as gospel. So you even ignored the vaccine trials that didn't even evaluate whether any lives are going to be saved. So you also, of course, ignored the oral fecal route of transmission of SARS-CoV-2 and insisted that masks and vaccines and nothing else, not even hand washing, could possibly help. You ignored it again when the conclusion that bore that out when bathroom services tested the highest for concentration of the virus. So basically, here's what you did. You took a hammer to science, ignoring the fact that statistically, masks have no real meaningful benefit in preventing the spread of COVID and compared to the cost. So you ignored studies going back decades that even present the real question of whether or not masks even work in an operating room to stop the spread of infection. So even when meatpacking plants, when they comply with your settled edicts, that never got you to change your tune. We're going on 694 days of this. So you ignored attempts to isolate SARS-CoV-2 in the air that failed. And that was still true as of January 2021, almost a year into executive rule. So it didn't stop there. Your settled edicts made testing useless. I mean, you told us, go out and get a test to find out where you were a week and a half ago after you've infected everybody that you would possibly infect. What good does that make? What good does that make? What good is isolating after that point? You've already infected everybody going to infect at that point. It's useless. So you even ignored that amplifying the number of cycles between 25 for the PCR panel resulted in false positives. Even Dr. Fauci said, don't do that. The guy you listen to, your Pope, your God, your King, you ignored what the holy Dr. Fauci said. I don't even know what to say when adhering to your religion requires you to defy the gods that you worship. But notwithstanding that, there's more. You've ignored household transmission among healthcare workers. You did. You've ignored warnings from doctors that COVID caution is killing patients. You've ignored the fact that COVID was already here months before your inane, destructive, and arrogant attempt to play God in thinking that 15 days to flatten the curve when it's been here since December, November of 2019 would make a damn bit of difference. So the fact is, this committee enabled the George Floyd exception, okay? It is what it is. You did it. You can defy the edicts of the governor, and you can literally riot on the streets. Except those of us to whom that exception doesn't apply, we can't earn a living. We can't go to church. We can't see our families. We can't live our life. But you agree with the edicts of the Democratic Party and do all that when it suits your whim. So let's get a little personal. I was a litigant in federal ballot access case. Secretary Merrill, because this was a virus that was so serious that absentee ballots needed to be given out in demand, she said, put everyone who is not a Democrat or Republican on the ballot without petitioning. So your leaders in General Assembly, I'm going to name names. I'm going to name defendants. It's going to happen. Martin Looney, Themis Clarions, Matt Ritter, Joe Aracimowitz, Bob Duff, Len Fasano, buckle up. You're getting sued. And I'll tell you why. You decided, for whatever reason or series of reasons, to pen a letter to a federal judge to delay that federal ballot access case. And you did it to conspire against everyone that wasn't a member of your party. You treated all of us unequally under color of law. So you abused process to lie to a federal judge to delay a federal ballot access case. Now, the goal is to run the clock. You won. You screwed us. You did it by running the clock. You made it so the Second Circuit couldn't help us. So of course I understand why you did that. You did that because, God forbid, you had 156 libertarians running for state house, and you had 36 libertarians running for state senate, and you had all 5 congressional districts with libertarian candidates. You would have lost. We would have had an ability to campaign. We could have run. We could have won. We could have raised money. Why? Because of everything that you are doing that I am going to describe here, that I've already described, and I will continue to describe. So, Joe Arasimowicz, if you're out there, hi. Not nice to meet you, but you were sort of an arrogant sort. You see, this guy, for those who don't know, he wished harm against those of us protesting these mandates. He was hoping we'd all, die in a COVID ward and, basically just pretty much suffer under Ned Lamont's Stanford prison experiment here. So the co-conspirators of Joe's, those guys who never at all did the necessary to stop that sort of arrogance, and you're on the hook too. It's just the same. It's just the same principle. If you can stop something, you got to do everything necessary. You got to file suits. You got to report them to the feds. You got to stop this. So that's literally the sort of arrogance from Joe and his party that led to a defamation action. I had to sue the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Party of Connecticut for falsely accusing me and my co-plaintiff of inciting armed insurrection and purposefully spreading COVID. So this is the price for publicly dissenting. We settled. Yeah, it goes to show you the system works when you use it, but it shouldn't have to come to that, should it? No. So these weren't by any means an isolated incident of selective enforcement of COVID emergency powers and restrictions. You see, every local municipal official loved the money as much as they loved the power. You're enabling this, by the way. You, so those in the General Assembly watching this, for the most part, you enabled this unprecedented, incestuous confluence that encouraged all sorts of abuse and has led to a very real breakdown in the fabric of civil liberties in our state, such that there is no deserved trust in government. Literally, the only way you have trust in government is Stockholm Syndrome. That's it. That's it, pretty much, other than limited reasonable assurances that the court system somewhat quasi sort of works. So the Public Health Committee has enabled that by literally locking down not just ordinary litigants out of court, but those in jail pending trial, children in DCF cases, those facing involuntary commitment. The governor suspended habeas corpus, and you let him. It's Executive Order 7G. I don't care if it's for a day or how many hundreds of days that you did it, but that is profound. That is absolutely insane. And it is about time someone spoke the truth and said how insane that is. So those for the restrictions at this point. Let me assure you that none of you reading this have any right to feel picked on. Not a bit. You may feel it, you're entitled to your feelings, but you're not entitled to your facts. So you deserve to be mocked for wearing a mask. Each and every time. For each and every time. You went after those of us who are exempt, like me. Because every time you would subject us to threats and violence, and in the case of the Democratic Party, having objects thrown at our cars, you did that. And you made Munchausen by proxy not a mental illness. You made it public health policy. It is equally true that you have no right to feel picked on by parents trying to get answers, trying to get their school boards to do the right thing, and to just end this nonsense, because no amount of federal or state money is worth it. It's not worth it. It's one thing for you to take 2 years of my life. You did. I'm 39. It's a lot of time. I'm not going to say it hasn't been a short ordeal, but a kid, a teenager, oh, 6 months is a universe to a teenager, but a kindergartner, that's an eternity. You took that. You and the General Assembly took that. You enabled it. So there is no right either to feel picked on, by small businesses. I mean, you, especially the hospitality business sector, you went to economic war with them. And you did that by allying with the governor to do it. None of this resulted in any safety. It really didn't. I mean, COVID was still spreading in the hospitals and nursing homes and the homes that those workers lived in. That's it. Your gym, going out for a pizza, it's a distant 15th place. It's ridiculous. I mean, your religion is completely unsupported by data in that respect. But you held on for 694 days on that. That's something. So here, when it comes to Exhibit A, which is in the testimony, that's the science end of how the mandates will just never, ever work. Exhibit A, and this isn't in the testimony, it goes through the different effects. Like, you're worried about how people can believe in conspiracy theories. Well, you abused them for 694 days. What do you think people are going to do? They're going to come up with the simplest excuse that they can find in their mind to figure out why you've just abused them and why you haven't stopped. And the sad part is, your average person isn't me. It is me. I mean, I dig in. I mean, I research. I mean, I actually read the studies. I read the stuff. I just don't go, I'm going to take the Wall Street Journal for it, or Dr. Fauci said it. I mean, he's plenty screwed up. He's got plenty of critics in his own field. Your average person is going to invent stuff in their own mind. This is what your mandates have caused. And so if you don't want people to wear a mask, if you don't want people to take the vaccine, by all means, continue. Extend the emergency forever. That's the best way to make sure that nobody will do any of these things that you want to do. You're doing it. You're doing a bang up job of that. So you've got a public relations campaign that has all the threats, all the violence, all the coercion in the world, and you still can't get everyone to take the shot. That's something. So when it comes to emergency use authorization, it's 21 USC 360 triple B -3. Read it. You know what's in that? One of the criteria, of all the criteria, is that no treatment exists or could exist. And there's nothing out there. So what we've done by forcing Miracle Jab is we've just decided we're not even going to explore the Math Plus protocol. We don't care about vitamin D. We don't care about any possibility of any treatments for COVID. So this is what you've done. Your mandates have scared physicians from doing their job. They have made sure that physicians are afraid to talk to their patients. They're afraid to treat their patients. I mean, and you've killed them. You've literally killed their patients by threatening their doctor's license. I mean, this is, and I can't even begin to discuss. I mean, the impact that this has had on healthcare workers. This is all in the name of hospital staffing, for Christ's sakes. And you annihilated hospital staffing. Not to mention, I mean, forgive my hoarse tone. I mean, it's been a bit. It's been a bit just going through this. But I haven't even scratched the surface of suicides I was affected by, or people, that were harmed and killed by the vaccines I know of. So what's it going to take? I mean, we haven't even touched on the people that are going to be thrown in the street. We haven't touched on, the hospitals are going to close. We haven't even touched on, the fact that the governor was driving people into nursing homes with COVID, the best place to get COVID. So the things that I described to the General Assembly in my testimony, I mean, you've allowed it, you've condoned it, you've enabled it, you've embedded it. I mean, With a sole exception of less than 10 of you, you're co-conspirators. You've engaged in deprivation of rights under color of law. I mean, even I, the most staunch libertarian of them all, I would have never in my infinite, wildest, most paranoid, delusional fantasies believed you would have gone this far and been this breathtakingly obtuse and incompetent and insensitive to the public health costs that you've inflicted. This is the problem you have. You have created a situation where you cannot possibly pay anywhere near enough money to make any of this right. The thing is, grandma who died, let's pick a date. Let's pick July 15th, 2020. Let's just pretend that was grandma's last day of life. Let's pretend she didn't even have COVID. She had cancer. Did she get to hug her grandkids? Did she get to take a walk in the park? Did she get to, play bridge with her friends? No. You decided no. You decided that was her last day of life and she didn't deserve to have it. That's what makes you evil and arrogant. So, anyone reading my testimony, anybody watching this, if you were for this, you have no soul. If you did not try to stop this, I question your ability to be a moral person. These things have literally turned the state I grew up in into some foreign, alien place that I do not know, and not even the COVID enforcers even know. They're lost. I mean, this is bad stuff, and I'm a due process guy, and that's where I believe. Just to be clear, this is going to get solved in the courts. That's just the way it's got to be, and that's the way it will be. So, I sincerely pray that this is effective enough to help make this insanity, and even if I persuade one or two more of you to vote, because I don't believe in this Democratic Republican political calculus bullshit. Because at a certain point, taking life is wrong. Far beyond this point. I don't believe in killing cancer patients by ending their screenings, but the General Assembly sure as heck does, because they went along with the governor who sure as heck believed in that too. So the Public Health Committee of the General Assembly has remorselessly, no less, they've harmed too many innocent people to take into account. I mean, each 6-month extension has come at a catastrophic, life-altering cost. All I can say is, you know what? God help us all. God help us end this. Because at a certain point, you don't get to go back and do this right and pretend if I just give him another 6 months and I have just another 6 months of people fighting with each other, like getting into fisticuffs over not wearing a mask. Or if I have like 6 months of a kindergarten's education, like never mind, you took way more than that. I mean, kindergarten's completely gone. So is first grade. So let's just go into second grade, shall we? Is this up for negotiation? Is this what we're willing to say? Because we want federal money? Because we want to be good little politically compliant people? There are certain questions that not even science can answer. But that's why we have religion. That's why we have philosophy. That's why we have art. That's why we have music. That's why we have life. But what this governor's done and what this General Assembly has done is they've arrogantly tried to answer that question as you got 3 squares and a roof over your head. And that's all you need. Well, it took a lot more than that. And you certainly can't print money to fix it. Never mind all the other stuff I described. Never mind all the implications. So please do not comply. Just don't. That makes you evil. And at this point, it's pretty evil. Why? It's the antithesis of life. It's death. hopefully this helps you. I mean, hopefully it helps you talk to other people. And hopefully, if you're one of those six legislative leaders, especially, find a fucking soul.